Hi, and welcome to the Scenic Route podcast. This is the show for building a successful and sustainable business on your terms. My name is Jen, and I'm a rebranding sociologist with a soft spot for rhubarb pie. Each week, I'll strive to expand your branding, business expertise, and mindset capacity. I'm so excited you're here, and now let's get into today's episode.
Jen Paulson is the creator of Year of Miracles and has been helping entrepreneurs, executives, and coaches for over a decade with their most important work, their inner work. She helps her clients recognize and release the hidden beliefs creating self-doubt, overwhelm, and sabotage so their work-life balance supports their success and, most important, relationships. Her unique methods creates quick results as she combines her psychology background and intuitive mindset work. Jen, welcome to the Scenic Route podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I'm almost gonna dive in with the easy question. Tell me about yourself. Can you briefly walk us through your story, like how you started and how you got where you're today? What are the pivotal crossroads, the big moments?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Really, I love Jens.
Jens
You have a lot
awesome.
of Jens on your podcast, I noticed.
This is so true. This is totally accidental, but yes, there are, I think we're 4 now, the ones I've recorded but haven't aired yet. So yeah, we're a lot.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. We're just going to do
Jen
an episode
power.
with just Jens. Yeah, we should do like a panel podcast episode where we have all the Jens.
Oh my gosh, that would be so fun.
I know Jen Fieldman, who was like the very first Jen on, she would be up for this. So
cool. Well, you let me know. We're going to do it.
You're in.
Oh gosh, where do I start? I think I'm just a normal girl, like probably a lot of your listeners are. You know, I grew up in a fairly normal home. I'm the oldest of 7 kids, and my mom was kind of like the typical super mom. She
must have been with 7 kids.
She had us in like a very short amount of time. You know, there's a lot to that. There's a lot going on. And anyway, and my dad was just a kind of a typical corporate guy, and we moved around a lot as kids for his jobs. And so that was kind of a cool experience that I really appreciate as an adult, having that chance to move around and learn how to be flexible and adjustable, I guess. And, you know, I went off to college and I started studying psychology, and I started like thinking, my family isn't quite what I thought it was.
Yeah, there are certain subjects who will ruin family life for you.
I'm like, I think on the outside, we looked like this perfect family who had it all together, and we did the music lessons, and my mom baked the bread. And but on the inside, you know, my parents were really struggling, and I didn't really know that until later in life, or well, till high school. But then was when I got into college and I started, my psychology classes, and I really focused on family psychology. So I was like, oh, interesting. There's some interesting family patterns, you know, that have been happening for a lot of years, and starting to see patterns like from my grandparents and, you know, things like that. And honestly, like my parents their marriage was falling apart. So I had a lot of like, you know, just inner turmoil about that, and anger and frustration. And in one of my classes in college, we had to go through therapy for 1 semester. It was towards the end of my degree. And it really was eye-opening to me. And I had thought that I wanted to go on and be a therapist, but the therapy in college was really frustrating to me. And so I decided, I'm not going to do this. I never really felt better. I just felt like I was talking about my frustrations over and over and over again. And I'm like,
and made you even feeling more frustrated.
Yeah, it was like reliving everything over and over again and nothing being resolved. I mean, the therapist was like, well, you need to forgive and you need to have a different perspective. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. And I'm like a very religious person. And I was kind of questioning, like, where's God? Like, why isn't he helping me?
Yeah, why do you have to go through these things that make me feel bad over and over again? And why is there no like absolution? Why is there no support? Like,
Yeah.
mhm,
And it
mhm.
wasn't until years later, like I had gotten married, I had a couple kids, I was talking to a friend of mine, kind of complaining probably about the latest family drama. And she's like, Jen, like she just came right out. She's like, you need to go see my energy lady. And I was like, this was 25, 26
Yeah,
years
that
ago,
energy
right?
healing was not a thing.
And I was like, what? She went to my church. I'm like, I don't know if I can be friends with her anymore. But I was
You
so
did go?
desperate. Oh, yeah. Like it took me a while to finally be open
Hmm.
to it, but I
Mm,
had done everything else. I was reading the self-help books, I was
hmm.
listening to cassette tapes on relationships and
Those are the days.
anger. And I know, right?
I remember I have one. My dad had like one cassette tape of like a meditative guided like this like somatic visualization or something, and I was I still have this image of me with this like Sony Walkman, like with the one with the little headphones with a
Yeah.
metal band, like being on the couch and listening to that. Those were the days, my
Oh
friend.
my
You don't know if
gosh.
you haven't lived if you don't know.
I know. Probably your listeners are way younger than me, but anyway.
But don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. We have a lot of people in their 30s and they still know what to do with a pencil and a cassette tape.
Oh my gosh, so funny. Yeah, so I was doing all the things and not feeling any better.
Yeah, it
And
was not clicking.
so I was like, well, maybe I'll go to the energy lady and see what she's got.
It cannot get any
And
worse, so why not try the
yeah,
energy?
exactly.
Yeah, worst
And
thing happened is money down the drain.
there you go.
Mm,
And it was a big deal because at the time, we were struggling financially. So to come
mm,
up with the money, to even go was it was a big sacrifice. And so
mm-hmm.
I was committed to being open. I was like, I can go and be
Yeah, I
open and
want to really get something out of this because it took me some effort to get here, so I want to get something out of it.
yeah.
Mm,
And I'll tell you that one decision, that 1 hour that I was able to be open enough to just try something different out of the
mm-hmm.
box changed the whole course of my life.
Wow.
And oh my gosh, like it's changed everything's for me. So once I in that one session I felt lighter. I was like my level of anger and frustration was
Mm-hmm.
considerably lessened. And I'm like, I don't even really know what happened.
I didn't do
I took
anything.
some deep breaths and she, like said some things to me and I felt better after an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, okay, you've got my attention.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband actually had it done as well. And we were in a place where we were really struggling and
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a job at the time. And I was pregnant with our third baby and we were living at his parents' house. And it was like he couldn't get moving, and
Mm-hmm.
he went to that one session and all of a sudden he could make decisions again,
Mm.
and I was like so curious about this. And so
Mm-hmm.
this was my beginning of understanding the conscious versus the subconscious brain.
Mm-hmm.
It just opened up an entire new world. And then I started understanding why the therapy all those years ago in college wasn't working, because it wasn't dealing with the subconscious
Mm-hmm.
stuff telling me, well, you're not worthy and deserving, and you're not enough.
Mm.
And, all these things that I had kind of
So your
picked up.
conscious was not really believing all the things that came up during this therapy at the time, because your unconscious mind was like kind of
Right.
like a
Well,
filter.
yeah, the subconscious like can't hear someone say, oh, you just need to forgive, you
Mm-hmm.
need to let go, you need to be, you need to look at this in a different
Mm-hmm.
perspective, because the subconscious is like trying to protect you from getting hurt
Mm-hmm.
again, right? And so the subconscious is like shutting everything down. like shedding your ability to forgive, shedding your ability to even understand what your own feelings are, because you just haven't even learned how to process feelings. Like I did go through and realize, oh my gosh, like I don't even know how to manage my own emotions. I've got a lot of stuff, trauma, in my body, in my mind, in my heart. And my traumas aren't, I mean, if we don't ever compare, right? But
no.
I had a pretty normal childhood. It wasn't like I had a lot of horrible.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like we're always tend to minimize like our own traumatic experiences, but this is not really, this is the wrong approach, right? Like whatever your body felt at the time was the right thing. Like it doesn't matter if now with all the wisdom you've accumulated to now, it's like, oh well, but it wasn't such a big deal, or other people had worse traumas or whatever. It doesn't work like that.
Right. And I love that you brought that point up, because that's, when I work with clients, we talk about, we're not talking about traumas necessarily. We're talking about, what do you believe about yourself because of the trauma you've experienced, whether it was, getting spanked for talking back, or whether it was being abused, by a neighbor or something like that. Like, it's not necessarily, we're not going over the traumas over and over again, because that just re-traumatizes ourselves. So I help people get to like the roots of, okay, but what do you believe about yourself?
What did you believe about to be true about yourself, about your traumas?
Well, my mom ran a tight ship. So there was
with 7 kids, like,
and
you got it probably.
I was born when she was 19.
Wow.
Right. And then the next one came 13 months later, and then 18 months later, and 18 months. So, there was just not a lot of room for, talking back, fussing. Everything was very behavioral. I'm not blaming my mom. She did the best that she could. I get that. But, the behavior expectations were very high. So, as a child, when we're in that kind of parenting environment, we learn that what we do proves our worth, right? Like if we're good enough, if we're, if we get the right grades, it was mostly behavior for me.
Yeah. And you also, I suppose you also learn that you're good when you're not seen and heard.
Well, you're good if you're not talking back,
Yeah,
and you're not arguing, and you're not having your own opinion, maybe
expressions. Yeah.
And, for me, like when my kids were little, I wasn't the type of parent that if they were having a meltdown in the store, like I'm not going to swat them and tell them to be quiet and make them behave. Like get it out, girl. Like, let's let it go, because, less therapy for you when you're an adult.
Or or therapy for other things, but not for that. Yeah.
Not for having to suppress your feelings when you're frustrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it just like the whole experience of starting that inner work program all those years ago just has had a profound effect on, how I feel about myself and my confidence, what my soul calling is, my connection to the divine has totally shifted and changed, because, you can imagine like the ways we perceive our parents are oftentimes the way we perceive divine, that.
Oh, tell me more. That sounds interesting.
Well, I mean, if you are someone who believes in like God the Father, and your father is emotionally disconnected.
Oh, okay. So you also perceive the Almighty as like a more distant God, and not emotionally involved God.
Well, yeah, someone who is like, oh, I have to be good in order to get blessings. I have to prove myself.
Yeah, I have
in order
to do
to be,
instead of I have to be.
Yeah,
or just be.
Yeah. And so that perspective has completely changed. And I have a much more connected, loving relationship knowing that God's got my back instead of he's waiting to punish me for something that, I've done
where you did.
wrong.
Yeah.
And that's not anything I learned necessarily at my church, but that's kind of what I picked up on from like just how, religion was talked about and taught in our family situation. And I don't mean to make it sound super negative. It wasn't all negative.
I get it. Look, I totally get it. Like sometimes when I talk to my therapist about my parents, like I always tell her like it wasn't that bad. And she's like, I know, I fucking get it. But then you're like, Jesus, it sounds like it was the worst possible childhood and shit. But I get it. It wasn't.
Yeah, but it is my stuff to work through.
Yeah.
And it did affect me.
Yes.
And
yes.
all of my siblings were affected in different ways. Some of them, weren't affected like I was at all. And others were affected very differently. So, yeah. So anyway, over the years, as I've been on this journey of just healing my own stuff and becoming more self-aware and learning how to manage my head talk and manage my emotions and learning how to express them more. I got to where, when I was 40, my youngest was getting ready to go to all-day kindergarten. And it really made me think, well, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I was blessed to be able to be a stay-home mom, had a few little businesses here and there. But now I'm looking at like the rest of my life. Like, what am I going to do?
Like the second chapter, like second half of my life. What do I want to do?
Yeah. And I knew I didn't want to just go get some little part-time job that paid me 10 or 50 bucks an hour.
Or join some multi-level marketing thing.
And yeah, so I just was like, I want to do this. I want to help other women. I want to, help those that have been struggling and don't know why they're struggling, just like I was for all those years,
Yeah, and I had tried different approaches and it just wasn't clicking, right? Like, I mean, I love that you went, like, you have like a degree in psychology and it was something, and I suppose these days, hopefully there's more talk about subconscious in psychology, but it's so interesting, right? Like that it took you that healer to realize, hey, this is now clicking.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the psychology world has changed a lot. And so anyway, so I decided to go get trained in a specific modality that just helped me understand how to get to the roots of people's, I call them symptoms, so lack of motivation, feeling overwhelmed, being a people pleaser, like, all those things, always proving yourself. And as I started working with people, I kind of naturally gravitated towards working with female entrepreneurs and started to understand like, oh, there are a lot of money issues that people have, and it's all in the subconscious, right?
Oh, yeah, because the money stories we have, I mean, they come from our formative years, so like three-ish to seven-ish or something. So
yeah,
long time gone.
So that's, so when someone says, hey, I've been like building my business for 5 years and I can't get past this plateau, then we start looking at the money part. But you probably know this, the money's never about the money.
Right. Yes.
So we're looking at deeper stuff, worthiness, just, feeling enough, feeling smart enough.
That's the juicy bits. I love the deeper parts where it's like, oh, now it's getting juicy.
I know, right? Like not feeling guilt and shame for shining your light and being more successful than your parents or your siblings.
Yeah, having your own opinion.
All those things. And it's interesting because I've realized, and I've had, several coaches over the years, because that's a high priority for me as a coach to always be in coaching.
Same.
And one of my coaches, she really helped me see that the way I felt about money was really mirrored the way that I felt about like men. like
Oh,
my relationship with my dad, and then some of the
wow.
guys that I dated. And it was really fascinating to kind of go back and see, as we're dealing with some of the childhood stuff, how it played
What were
out.
some patterns that you saw emerging with your relation to money and men?
Yeah, well, that there was never enough emotional connection.
Mm,
It was the relationships were very distant,
hmm
which was my experience with money. Also, like I noticed like with, my dad, especially, like sometimes I felt like he was present and sometimes he wasn't, but I never
mm.
really knew when he
Wait, is
was
it
gonna
present
like,
dad, not present dad?
yeah. And
Mm,
so that's kind of how I felt with money. Like I never really knew when it was going to show up. I didn't know if it was going to stay. And so it was very, very fascinating when I
uh-huh,
started, recognizing, oh, this is really interesting. And
uh-huh.
I get to heal those things with my dad.
Two birds with one stone.
Hmm. Yeah, so many. And it affected my relationship with my husband as well. So that's been able
Oh,
to change and transform, so over the years. We
uh-huh.
just celebrated 29 years. So,
Oh,
um,
congratulations. That's
yeah.
amazing.
And yeah, this work has really helped me let go of some of the stories of like my parents' stories
Uh-huh.
in their marriage where,
That were not even yours, right? There were your parents or your grandparents somewhere along the ancestral line.
but they creep in
Hmm
because it's familiar,
hmm
right? So if you don't look at it and you don't do that inner healing, then you repeat patterns. And that's one of the things that I love about, doing the inner work is you get to stop the patterns. And a lot of them,
Mm.
like you said, are generational. It's just passed down. It's in your DNA. But we can shift and change that as we become aware.
So you go to the root of the cause. What is
Mm-hmm.
the modality you have trained in?
It was formerly called Simply Healed, and now it's
Hmm
called Simply Align.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the creator of it. Her name is Carolyn Cooper, and yeah, I got trained about 12 years ago,
Mhm.
and I've been helping people ever since.
Ah, I love that.
It's very intuitive, but it's very, she called it simple because she did find a way to make this type of work very simple.
Mm.
And it's very deep, and it's very first in the first session, you can feel a difference.
Wow.
So it's very powerful. Yeah.
Wow. And I mean, I guess it's got to be, right? Because if you say you want to go to the root where it all started, it has to be something that cuts deep.
Yeah. But it's not like this painful journey
Hmm
either. And
Mm,
when I say, getting to the roots, like the client doesn't have to figure that out. Like
mm,
that's something that I'm like tuning into, and it's very intuitive, and it's like,
hmm
okay, yeah, the root of this belief system of not being enough is started at age 3. We just have to acknowledge it. And then I have my client take a breath. I usually take a breath with them, and we're just going to release that, because it's just stuck energy. Trauma
mm,
is simply just stuck energy,
hmm
and it just needs permission to release,
It
but it
needs to
needs to
be
be
released.
acknowledged.
Yeah, it doesn't go away
No,
by like ignoring it. That
no,
didn't work for the past couple of years. It will not work now.
exactly. You can't affirmation it away. You can't
Mm.
really journal it away. And you can't always see your own stuff. That was my deal,
You mostly cannot. Like even
you know.
therapists have therapists, right? Like it's I'm
So
curious though, like what you said about the affirmations, right? Like, I mean, I know most people do, or most people who are listening are doing some sort of affirmation, if they call it affirmation or not, or mantras or whatever. It's interesting what you said, right? Like, they can't work if there's like underlying trauma at bay, or how would you go about?
right. So if let's say you're trying to like make more money in your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've written down like 100 affirmations, or
Yeah.
you're writing out, I'm worthy and deserving of money. I'm worthy and
Yeah.
deserving of money. I'm worthy and deserving of money. Like,
Like a broken cassette player.
yeah, I mean, you can look in the mirror yourself, you can write it out. But if you're subconscious, like if you have
It's not
like
believe, it's going like, that's
wounds,
bullshit.
yeah,
Mm.
nope, nope, nope. You know, and this is such a like you can see people that have money or all of a sudden come into money, like a lot of athletes that have come from, you know, really humble circumstances and all of a sudden have this money because, you know, they're amazing athletes. So many times the money is gone like so fast because there's a subconscious belief system. Well, I didn't come from money. I'm not worthy of money. Unless someone is really working on their money beliefs and healing those traumas around scarcity and not having enough to eat and not knowing where the, you know, the next outfit is coming from.
Yeah,
Like,
that's so true, right? Like earning and keeping, especially money, are completely different things. Ooh.
so it's just an interesting thing to start thinking about, you know, in our own lives. It's like, well, how do I handle money? How do I feel about money? When I was young, when I was a young mom, I would get sick to my stomach every time I went to the store, whether I had $25 in my account or $2,000 in my account. Like, it made me sick to my stomach to spend money. And when I started healing that, you know, because that's the symptom, right? You feel anxious, you feel sick to your stomach.
Yeah, you have just this queasy feeling. A lot of people have it in their belly or lower abdomen, or you're like, oh.
Yeah. Until you start paying attention to what your body's trying to tell you, you know, and until you start healing those things, or as you do, then your whole experience, you know, can change. Like as I started healing that, I started seeing it different. I'd go to the grocery store and I'd like just actually see the checkout gal, and I'd see her as a person. And I'd be like, well, I bet, you know, maybe this is a second job for her. Maybe this lady's helping put her grandchild through college, you know, with this job. Maybe she's a single mom or he's a single dad or like whatever. And it made me grateful to spend the money. And then I looked at all the things I was buying and I'm like, wow, look how many people are benefiting from this 200 bucks I'm spending today. And it became joyful. And
that's why I celebrate now paying taxes.
Yeah, means you earn some money.
It means I earn some money and means I can do some good.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's so true. I'm curious though, like when we had it with affirmations, right? Like they will not stick if your unconscious mind is like bullshit. So we said like we can't really access it. It's subconscious. So how the heck do we retrain our unconscious mind?
Well, okay. So in the work that I do, that's a really great question. I'm glad you asked that. So in the work that I do, it has a couple different parts to it. The first part is we get to the subconscious roots, right?
Yeah.
And releasing it. Okay. And then the second part is retraining the conscious brain, because we've got all these neural pathways that are just used to responding like, well, when I get to the cash register, I get sick to my stomach.
Yeah. They're just keep playing the known pattern, the known tape, and like
Right. So that's where I help my clients with different statements that they'll say when they start feeling triggered, or I'll give them some journaling exercises. And I actually do use affirmations in my coaching, but I use them to replace what we've released. So we've released like, you know, traumas and old belief systems, generational programs. We're breathing on all of that, letting all that go. And then I add in the affirmations. So like I was actually just doing a group session the other day, and I have my notes here. We were talking about money. So after we cleared a whole bunch of junk around money, then I gave them these affirmations with the intention that this is replacing the old belief system. So money is safe, money is helpful, money is kind, money is abundant, money is always flowing in, money is easy to manage and keep track of, money is easy to receive. So, and the affirmations come very intuitively. Nothing is set. It's just very intuitive, whatever that person or whatever that group needs. Oh, I am peaceful with money. That's one of my other favorite affirmations for money.
I love that one.
But it's like, well, you can say that over and over again. But again, like if you haven't done the inner work first.
Yeah, it's just words. Like it's just empty words. Like your mind, your subconscious. Like,
and it can feel very agitating to say that. So yeah. So it's very like that's one topic that has lots of just roots, and it's really fun. Really fun to dive into money because like I said, it's never about money.
It brings up everyone has a money story, right? Like that's the funny thing. Like when I started my entrepreneurial journey, little did I know that I would have to deal with so much of my own shit. Like money stories, traumas, inner child wounds, whatever, like you name it. I was like, ooh, like I'm glad I did the work. I know I still have a lot of work to do. You always do. You're never running out of work. It's cool. It is what it is. It's fine. But like, dang, at the beginning, I was just like, Jesus, what did I get myself into here? Like, why is that not like a disclaimer anywhere?
I know, that's so true. But the thing that I really like love about doing the work is that it gets you to these deeper levels of peace, deeper and deeper levels of peace. So, years ago, I used to have a lot of anxiety at family gatherings, because feelings were, that people, like right after my parents' divorce, right? There's a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of frustrated feelings, and it would give me a lot of anxiety to go to the family dinners. And as I started healing my own stuff over time, that just went away, and little by little, I would notice, and my husband would notice, that, oh, you didn't cry after this family dinner. Oh, yeah, I didn't.
Oh yeah, now that you're telling me. Yeah, but it is so true, right? Like, and sometimes it happens so in such small shifts that you're kind of like, oh, I haven't changed, until someone is mirroring back like, hey, you're acting completely different now. And you're like, whoa, that's true.
And sometimes that happens so fast and so big too. It's like
depending on the show.
One of my clients last week, let me just give a little backstory. I mean, she's been coaching with me for a year. She's had a lot of stuff from her childhood where she just was not well cared for emotionally. And so we've been doing this work, and she's an entrepreneur, and she's started a new business, and we got her all connected to her soul calling, and just we keep doing the work, right? And then all of a sudden, like the momentum had like finally broke. And instead of just like little trickles of success here and there,
it was a flood.
We had a $10,000 week.
Wow.
And it was like, girl, you have been doing the work for this to happen. And it's like she's broken past a barrier, right? Where now she's like in this level of belief that, her clients want to come to her and they want to pay her. And it wasn't hard. She wasn't working herself to death. It was just this joyful experience, right? So
it's beautiful.
I just love that. I love that life just gets better, even though our stuff, continues to come up, but our peace gets to be deeper.
Yeah, like the more we work on it, right? Yes, there will always be things that come up, but with every work that you do, you'll always react differently to whatever is coming up.
Yeah.
Right. So something that's coming up, maybe if it would have come up 4 years ago, it would have triggered the shit out of you. And now you're like, yeah, that's bad, but it's okay. I'll be okay.
Yeah, I know what to do with this. I know
Yeah.
you either know like you have the mindset tools to release it yourself, or if you're stuck in it, then you go get a tune up
Mm.
with your energy coach.
Yeah, and like before we like let you go, like we've talked before, and you said like, oh, I can show you 3 ways to create more miracles in your life, and I'm like, sure, like bring it on. Where
Okay.
can always like, I mean, I don't know how you're feeling, Jen, or anyone's listening. 2022, like after 2020 and 2021, we're all felt like it's going to be better. Like I don't know. I don't know. 2022 was a handful. So
Yes,
let's invite more miracles.
absolutely. Yes. And we're called, I feel like 2022, like we got through 2021, 2020 and 2021 and
Mhm.
2022. It's like, now we're going to go really deep. You thought those years were deep? No, now we're going to do some serious excavation, you know? And people either
Yeah.
stay stuck or
Mhm.
they're like, okay, I'm in it because what else am I going to do? Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, here are like three things that can get you started in attracting more miracles. I mean, obviously, you got to work on your subconscious belief system, right? Like, you just
Mm.
have to. You need a coach that knows how to take you through that
Mhm.
process. But number one thing, forgive everyone for everything. I
Oh.
mean,
Mm.
when we're holding on to stuff, it just drains us. And
Mm.
I had a mentor years ago, one of my very first mentors. She told me, Jen, you don't need to know how to forgive. You just have to be willing. And that
Mhm.
just freed me up because even the
Mm.
energy of being willing allows for the miracle of
Mhm.
forgiveness to come, because who knows how to
Yes.
actually forgive? That's just a
Ugh.
divine miracle. Like, that's just a divine miracle.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta have to find a way like that works with you, right? And what really clicked for me in terms of like forgiveness is just I would just sit quietly and would just say the person I need to forgive is XYZ, and I forgive you for whatever. And that's all I said for a long time.
Yeah.
And I realized with when I had troubles with that, like when it's like, no, oh, I cannot, like, no. I remember I was talking to my coach at the time, and I was like, I'm stuck there. Like, there's one person, like, no, this doesn't work. My it's like, no, 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 no. And she had this really great visualization exercise. I think I'm going to share it quickly. Like,
Yeah.
it was so powerful. That was clicking for me. She was like, imagine you're sitting in a theater and big room, you're the only one sitting in a chair, and on the stage in front of you is that person coming in. Okay, I'm like, loving this. And she's like, well, and now there's a movie playing or of anything that person on stage ever wanted in her life, that ever made her feel valued, good, deserving, and so on. All the good things. And watch that. And I was like, that's a lot of bullshit. And I did that. I was like, I don't know. It felt so peaceful to watch her, like visualizing her happy and like have all these good things. And it really made me peaceful. And I was able to say, I forgive you after that visualization exercise.
Oh, that's so powerful. I love that.
Yeah, I was like, wow. Because I felt like, no, I don't want to have anything good happen to her, like that bitch. And I could see it. And I was just like, that's so great that all these things happened to her. And like my mind had no bullshit around it.
Yeah, that's so incredible.
It was so beautiful.
Our minds and our brains are so powerful. I mean, they'll do what we tell them to do if we
Mm-hmm.
can give them, the right
Yeah.
directions.
So yeah, let's go back to directions. Like, so the one of the ways is forgiveness, practicing forgiveness.
Forgive everyone for everything. The next
Mm-hmm.
thing is decluttering.
Oh yeah.
Decluttering is like when we have clutter in our lives, it is a huge energy drain. and it keeps us very distracted. So if our physical space is cluttered, it's hard to think clearly. It's hard to get things done. It's if our schedule is too cluttered, right? Then we're going from thing to thing to thing. Then our brain energy goes way out, and we don't.
There's no time to reset to it. Yeah.
If we say yes to too much, and I'm talking about like, this is different than your schedule, right? This is like, hey, can you watch my kids for 5 days while I go on a trip? And you have a full schedule, but it's your sibling and you think you should do it, and it's the nice thing to do, but honestly, like, you don't have the mental or physical energy to do it,
capacity to do it.
When you say yes anyway, like, you start to become resentful, and it's just so saying yes to too much, not saying yes to the things that you want to do, right? Like, kind of being a martyr. Oh no, I won't go to the restaurant that I want to go to because I want you to be happy and have everything you want.
Oh God, yeah, I feel that's gonna resonate with a lot of listeners.
And let's see, other forms of clutter, like when sometimes the food that we eat, like if our blood sugar levels are unbalanced and they're all over the place, that's a form of distraction because we're not going to feel good. Media that we take in can be very cluttering.
Yeah, that's a huge one, right? Like
very depressing, very comparison. Like, so declutter your media. And then you're going to get down to more of the inner things, like what thoughts are cluttering your headspace? Are you negative all the time? What attitudes do you have? Like, when you hear people say, oh, everyone's just an idiot, well, if you're walking around life thinking everyone's an idiot, then that's all you're going to see are idiots, right? There's no room to see miracles, even if they're right in front of you. And beliefs about yourself, like if you need to declutter
your brain will keep on reinforcing what you believe about yourself,
right? So you need to start becoming aware of that, and working on that, letting those negative things go. And so then the third one is schedule time to be still and just quiet your mind. And I'm not talking about a guided meditation, like I'm just sitting on a chair,
whatever this looks like for you, right? Like it can be a walk in the forest, like whatever,
just whatever helps you quiet your mind down. But keep a pen and paper handy, because you'll get your $1 million idea.
Oh, you get the downloads, all right. Yep.
During that time, and all your answers to prayers just come in that time where you're willing to be still and not have an agenda,
Yeah.
So anyway, those are three really great places to start.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Jen, for sharing those with us.
You're welcome.
So, hey, listen, when people are like, oh, okay, I want to know more about Jen, where can people find you? Where do you hang out online?
Instagram a lot. So it's just at Jen Paulson.
We're also going to link it in the show notes. So you don't have to write it down.
Yeah, you can go to my website, get on my email list. You'll get a freebie of 7 days of like inspiring thoughts and affirmations. And
oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm on Facebook too, but I'm trying to grow my Instagram. So will you follow me on Instagram, you guys?
Yeah. I don't know. I sometimes feel like the jig with Facebook is kind of up. I don't know.
Yeah. I use that more for personal stuff, I think.
Yeah, I get that.
Anyway, I do have a gift for listeners though.
Oh,
and we're going to post that in the comments as well, the link, but it's a little mini session. Like it's a 20-minute session that's just going to take you through like what a session with me would look like and feel like. Ooh, and all you have to do is breathe through it. It's just to help
I love
find your voice, and it's to help calm the stress and the overwhelm. And even though it's a recording, your energy will shift and clear. Like if you focus in on it and have that intention, like you'll feel better by the end of that 30 minutes. So that'll give you an idea of what my work is like.
Oh, I love that. That's so generous. Jen, thank you so much for being on the Scenic Route with me. It was such a joy to talk to you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the Scenic Route podcast. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode and that you can take something from it that feels right to you. I'd be so grateful if you could share the Scenic Route podcast with others. As always, you can head over to scenicroutepodcast.com to check out all the links and resources from today's episode. Oh, and while you're there, don't forget to download my free email course, Intuitive Branding Invitation, to teach you how you can successfully tune into your own brand frequency and rediscover your brand's unique gifts, strengths, and talents. So thanks again. Talk soon.